Here we are on the Mac, and everybody have a day. What we do, that file from the laptop now finds its way through the memory stick into the Mac, which, there it is. Oh, before anyone says Metal Cruiser is a weird name, it's not any attempt at trying to be cool. It's literally the brand of it's the company that makes it, and the fact that it's metallic. And so all of my things, I've got like a blue cruiser as well, and stuff like that. Anyway, other stuff, look away, blah, blah, blah. Right, what we do, we got that there. Oop, we can hide that now. We open up Logic Pro X, I suppose. I still kind of refuse to call it that. It's still Logic Pro 10 to me, considering all of the other ones beforehand were numerical. Here it is. Right. This thing is a lifesaver in a way. Oh, it's already loaded. That saves me some trouble. This is my podcast template, and the best way to describe this file is every single podcast goes through it. And everything is set up from the mixing, kind of. There are some adjustments here and there, but everything goes through here. The first track named for the podcast is what you would expect. That's where the podcast goes. Themes, that's where the opening and credits are. I believe that's our old one now, which we'll just ignore for now because we've got a new one. Joke audio is any point where someone's asked me to do something, like, can we get a crowd of audience, or can we get an audience in the background cheering or something, you know, I would find a sample of that, or make up one on my own and put it in the background somewhere in this track. Audio 4 is any random music, or any miscellaneous audio that I want to put in. Like if I want somebody to have an isolated echo on their own. As you could probably see, all of the podcast gets recorded on one track. So I actually have to probably copy someone's voices to this one to copy one voice echoing. Otherwise you'd just get a cluster of the entire cast echoing, which isn't pleasant to listen to. And there seems to be some leftover audio from the previous one there. So we go into podcast, file, import audio file, and we find the demonstration one, and click open. One thing that's a pro tip, well, not really a pro tip, make sure that you have, if you're going to do something like this, make sure you're importing from the very start of the track. Because say if I was still somewhere in the middle of this timeline somewhere and hit import, it just imports it from like 2 hours in, or maybe an hour and a half in, who knows. This may look like it's taking some time, you know, that it's like 3 minutes long, but it's a godsend. Everything that you see down here, the EQ, the compressor, the exciter and limiter and all this fancy stuff. On Audacity, if I told Audacity to do all of this stuff to the track, it does it one by one. So I'd have to highlight, let's say the podcast was an hour long, highlight an hour's worth of content and then tell it to add an EQ. And then wait for an hour as it does it. And then I would tell it to add in a compressor. And then I would have to wait an hour for it to do that. And if I wanted to normalize it, you know, it would take a while, or anything else, like limit it. It would take an hour to go through pretty much, you know, because I've not got the fastest computer in the world, my laptop. But yeah, I'm still vamping, as you can tell. One of the things that I'm going to quickly say is I'll give you a brief rundown of what goes down in the EQ. Maybe not the compressor, it's a bit difficult to explain. It's just a shame I can't show you a demonstration with the audio from the actual podcast getting affected, because I don't believe you'll be able to hear the podcast because of what I mentioned at the start. So, yeah, I'll show you what I kind of do. You don't have to follow it word for word, but I'll explain to you why I do a few of the EQing things. One thing that I can quickly show you is the themes. In the themes, I have direction mix, which it does open. Normally a direction mix is at 1, which is relatively normal. You spread it out, it gets further around. Imagine like it gets further out on each side of your headphones. When you push it in, essentially that's mono right there. I have it at that because there's actually an imbalance. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but if you listen to the podcast, it's really bass heavy on one side and not the other side, and I really don't know why. It was not produced that way. Oh, maybe it was. Maybe I was a noob when I was producing it, but one side is louder than the other, so what I do is crush it down to almost mono, so there's no difference between either side, kind of. Yeah. So that's something I could show you while this thing is loading. Again, I probably shouldn't get frustrated that it takes 4 minutes to do this, because it used to take maybe 4 hours. Because while it imports that track, all of this stuff has just been added to it instantaneously. Like, it's done. All this stuff, I don't have to wait for hours for all of this to come in. What I need to be wary of, though, is I can see my battery for my mouse is running out. Here's the podcast. So, very first thing I do, I'm going to bring in the credits, bring it in a bit closer. And I'm also going to bring the end in, because I believe the last podcast was kind of long. Oh, it was the Star Wars one. It was about 2 hours long, so yeah, I'll bring that in to save time. And with this little doohickey up here, zoom in, and I drag the theme to its little gap that I showed you earlier. Whoop, there it is. Now I've got to... I'm going to quickly undo that. Right, I'm going to quickly show you a little trick that I do to remain a little consistent with the openings. Right here, Luis is just about to welcome you into the podcast. There's a dimple in the track where it hits that final note and it kind of fades out. And what I do is I actually align Luis saying welcome. You know, right here he's saying, welcome to the Shifty Key Podcasts, blah, blah, blah. You see this little small bit where it gets a little bit quieter for like a brief moment? It naturally does that. What I try to do is align that up with where he says, welcome. Well, oh, it doesn't matter. I can't actually demonstrate that that's worked, but that's what I do each podcast. He doesn't come in as the last note comes in. It comes in just a few seconds afterwards. I leave a little bit of space for the drums to come in the background as well. It's not that distracting. Anyway, the next one. The credits are a lot more easier to put into place. I just wait for there to be absolute silence on this end. So there's nothing going on. You know, I double check. Like there was a bit of audio there. And then it says bye. A few moments later, credits come in. And there's a little gap before the Easter egg. Right. Whoop. Now, what I'm going to show you, there is no joke audio or other stuff in this one. What I'm going to show you, this is the lovely EQ. And if you don't know what an EQ is, definitely look into it if you're thinking about editing stuff. You don't have to be a master of EQing, but there are certainly things that you should do. There's not many ways you can go wrong. Like, don't go too extreme with them. Normally, if I quickly show you, we get a bit of audio here. A typical default EQ looks like this. It's completely flat. And what you're doing is that would boost those frequencies, and that would get rid of those frequencies to grossly under-describe what's going on. That's the bassy end, and over here we've got the high-pitched end. Any further than this would probably be a dog whistle, but a few tips that I can give you is you really do not need this bit here. This is the bassy end, and let's just say 30 hertz downwards is kind of like sub-frequency. So really all you're going to get if you have that kind of audio, I could probably get away with cutting more. All you're going to get down here is mechanical noises, like humming from a computer fan, or if someone knocks something, you're going to hear that. Even if I make like a really deep voice and whatever, you're never going to miss any audio here from the voice. You know, like, I wish I could demonstrate it by just cutting everything else away but this section and letting you hear it, because you would hear nothing. So you can get rid of that. The next bit, I knock this bit down. It's typically because that is the bassy part of most people's voices. If I was to play, you know, this is Louis speaking here, that's Dr. Sparks. You see, that's why I cut that out, because that was him knocking against the mic just then, where it all came up. I could probably drag that back a little bit, but for most of the time I leave it at 200 because of, I don't know, I like to. The next one is 2K hertz, which I always remove a little bit, like on music productions, so I'm going to do the same here, because a lecturer a very long time ago told me in a music production class that 2K is the most fatiguing frequency. So if you listen to an album, like, it's fine if you leave it like that for a song, but if you listen to an album that's got a lot of 2K activity going on, and you know, say if it's boosted there, in fact, like he can say, he said that it's been proven that it's like, it's uncomfortable to listen to. So yeah, I knock it down just a little bit, just as a precaution, because it's a podcast, you're going to be listening to it for an hour. So if this was like this, I don't think I could bloody listen to it. Oh, pro tip, don't do boost like too extreme, okay? You're only doing audio editing for a voice, you know, you don't have to be crazy. This one, I'm also cutting away about 700, just a bit. As I said earlier, I kind of adjust these from podcast to podcast. The reason why I cut that down is because that's where the S sound is, and prepare yourself to not be able to unhear every time there's an S sound. Significant. Sausages. What this does is just remove that S sound, which can get a bit annoying. I knock that down. And a big learning curve for my editing career with the Shifty Keys was I used to boost the high end, like back here, somewhere like that. I used to boost from back here, which was, or here, or something like that. I can't exactly recall, it was done on Audacity. And we once had Mishu on the podcast, and it was entirely not Mishu's fault, but I boosted where her S sound comes in, and it obnoxiously, every time there was a S sound, it was almost clipping the audio. It was so loud, and I was like, wow. I had to go back and redo the EQ, which, as I said, in Audacity, takes hours. Here, you can just adjust it, literally get active feedback and hear where the S sounds are and adjust accordingly. But yeah, that's why I knock that bit down. I boost the high end because it gives it a bit more air. I don't know how to explain that one. It's just, you know, I like adding some brightness to the track. And that's essentially what you're doing. Some esoteric term for you. There's brightness and air if you boost here. Because you really can't hear anything up here. Like, okay, some people can hear that, but boosting that area, there's going to be nothing vocal related up there. It's just going to give you a good sense of, I don't know. And the other little boost is here. It's in the middle of the track, in the middle of the frequencies. And if I was to play, that's right in the middle of the vocals. I'd say 1K to 5K is where you're looking at for the vocals to come in. I could probably better demonstrate that with the multimeter. That's the kind of area you're looking at. Like, as you can see, it's about 250 to 8 here because it's Dr. Sparks talking. But if you were to cut everything away up until like 1K to 5K, you would still hear exactly what's going on in the podcast. So yeah, I boost that little area just a little bit, just to make the center of the vocals a bit more clearer. Compressor. Oh, and as I say, I adjust those all the time, so don't think I keep that, and that's the number one way of doing it. With the compression, what that does is crush down all the loud bits and gives you the ability to boost the quiet bits effectively. Again, I'm grossly under-describing what's going on because, I'm working to a little bit of a time schedule here because I need to do something before it gets to 9 o'clock. I need to release another YouTube video. How meta that this is going to be one of the videos that you're going to see soon. But what I do, see this, that's gain reduction. Anything that's too loud, that's above this particular threshold, gets pushed down. I'm not going to go into exactly what happens with all these things. There's way too many things to show. I would recommend going on a YouTube video and letting someone explain it. But if you're not that confident with the compressor, one thing that I'd recommend is just going into the presets, really, and going to voice and finding one that works. Like, oh, there's one. Narration vocals. Like, if I check out the graph and then go back to my other one, we do things differently, but you could probably get away with that. Oh, that was a natural one. Natural voice, that's not the same one. Yeah, it really doesn't matter too much. Each their own. I'm probably doing stuff wrong there that other people will shake their head at, but hey, I don't particularly mind. That affects only this track. What I have after that is this one. I still have that random track here that's not relevant to anything. We got this one. This is what all of these tracks go into. This is essentially mastering we're looking at now. And the EQ, as you can see, and just being extra safe and just cutting out even more of the bassy stuff and knocking down a little bit more of certain areas. I don't even know why that's happening there. I guess that's just a precaution to make sure there's no crazy high frequencies happening. It just seems kind of counterintuitive considering I boost there and here. Yeah, never mind. This affects the entire track. So if you're thinking, why am I cutting frequencies here? Oh, it's because that's not only, I did it earlier in this one. Yeah, I did, but it's also going to cut them down from these. Oh, and also the compressor is a lot lighter. To try and demonstrate that, if I play, you notice that this isn't bouncing around as much. It's only a little bit. The reason why I do that is to make sure there's no clipping going on as I try to gain a little bit more volume with the limiter. You see I put a bit more volume in there. Well, gain. I also put a ceiling on it just in case because I don't really like leaving it at 0 because you can sometimes still get clipping. I don't know. So I like to put maybe just a little bit of safety there. What this does is boosts the volume, before, after. I could probably be a bit more extreme. As you can see, it's going right up now. The reason why I have the compressor where I have it on this track again is so when it gets to really loud, it boosts. When I boost it to go really loud, the compressor actually gently takes off the loud bit just before it gets to the top again. I'm not entirely sure why I have a tuner in here, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Also, I'm actually more of a fan of using this limiter, so I'm not quite sure why the other one was there. But anyway, you know, we experiment. The multimeter is just to make sure that everything's in place. You got correlation down here to avoid any phasing issues. You know, and this is kind of the shape I'm looking for. I kind of do change it around. You know, it's not perfect. I've said that way too many times. But yeah, that's essentially it. The next thing that I do is I go to File. Oh, I first make sure that I've got everything in the actual podcast. So I quickly make a little reference if I drag it right to the end. Oh, make a little reference that's the last thing that you hear anything on. Oh, let me just drag it to it. Come on now. Don't make me zoom out. There it is. Right, there's the end. Keep a note of what one that is. Oh, did I just put it back? Yes, I did. Right, so that should go up to 1,732. The only reason why I make sure that it does that is because when I go to bounce and then bounce the project or section, you know, there we go. I make sure it starts where it starts and ends there. Because there has been the one time where it has done all the bouncing and it actually cut off halfway for some reason. I don't know. Or sometimes it has like 2 hours extra of silence at the end. It's just, it saves a bit of time. Normalize, I usually leave off because I've got the limiter here. If you want to be extra safe, you can put the overload protection only on, which means if it does clip at any point, that just makes sure that it doesn't. I don't particularly need to normalize it, so I don't. One important thing that I'll bring up is that's 48,000. If you're doing anything with video, use 48,000. Don't use this one. On Audacity, you might have seen, actually I don't know if it actually showed it, Audacity kind of defaults to this. Because if you're doing music or anything else with audio and it doesn't require a video, you use this one. Video, use this. I can't explain why, it's just something I've kept to. And with all that done, everything else is kind of not important. I click OK. And it, and I save it as something, usually back into the Metal Cruiser. That would be Shifty Key 99 Ty edit. Just so they know I've edited it, and then I hit bounce. What I'm not going to show you here, because it would be pointless and a waste of time, is I would now take that memory stick that it's bouncing to. I would take it, put it into my laptop, put the file in a compressed folder, and then attach that file to an email, usually through OneDrive, and then send it on its way to the Shifty Keys. We have our own little independent email, which isn't for anything really like social related. We just have an email because all of us have access to it. The admins, you know, TJ, Louise, Vic, Jim and me. If we want to send each other a file, it's much quicker doing it that way, sending it as an attachment to that particular email. Because if you try to transfer a file through Skype, the person sending it has to be online and the person receiving it has to be online. It can be a bit of a nightmare when we have different time zones, you know. So if I was to try and send something to Vic, we are like 8 hours apart, so it can get kind of annoying doing it that way. And yeah, the rest of the stuff, like the video editing, I actually can't show you because that is all handled by TJ. He really doesn't do anything out of the ordinary with the audio, I believe. I believe his main focus is just the video side of it. The editing, I'm pretty sure he just leaves alone. So yeah, that's the I tried to say audio and editing at the same time, but yeah, that's the audio editing side of it done. Fun fact as well, this blew my goddamn mind when I first used it. The earlier podcasts were just solely edited on Audacity, and as I said, it used to take forever to do stuff, including exporting the file. It would take hours. This right here, like, it's bouncing, it's taking, what, a few minutes? The first time I used it, I was like, right, it's bouncing, it's doing its thing, it's exporting, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go downstairs and make a coffee. I go downstairs, I come back up, maybe like 4 to 5 minutes later, and this is gone. And I'm like, oh no, it must have, like, crashed and restart, because nothing's happened. Little did I know it was all done. It blew my mind that it happens, like, so quickly, you know. I could get through the editing phase of everything on the podcast on Logic Pro 10 in about 4 minutes, whereas in Audacity it could take nearly the entire day. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I can't really show you much else, but I'm going to give you an Easter egg. Because why the hell not? You know, you've sat through me rambling, you know, this is what I do, you know, and I rambled through it. So what I'm gonna do is, shout out to Ken Ashcott. Oh, if you were focusing on just the audio editing of all of this, you can go away now. I'm just going to be doing something stupid for the time being. What do you mean we have no subscriptions? That can't be right. Subscribe, and I hope this doesn't get us a copyright strike. Luis, we all know you absolutely love this song. Not only am I going to add this to the watch later list, I'm also going to... Oh, it's already been liked. I guess TJ beat me to it. Yeah. So... that's going to piss off Luis. I wonder how long it's going to take him to notice that I've done that. Oh, by the way, shout out to the history. You know, we got other stuff here, but, like, I ruin his history with some of the music I listen to. Woo. Anyway, as you can see, that's now bounced. I would now bring it back onto my laptop. And because it's nearly 9 o'clock and I actually have to go out and release a video, I'm going to bid you adieu. Thanks for putting up with me rambling. Bye, I suppose. And, you know, cheers for hearing me out. And I hope I helped people learn things. Bye.